Hey, everybody. Welcome to another full spectrum preparedness show. Got a really good show tonight. Um, let me introduce the guests. Okay. First, we've got the Wonder Twins, Bobby and Patrick from Midwest Preparedness Project. How you guys doing?
Outstanding. Glad to be here.
What's up, buddy?
Our next guest is an OG. He is one of the OG preppers from Kansas and Kansas City, as a matter of fact. It is the one, the only Permaculture Pimp, Billy Bond.
Well,
how you doing, Billy?
What's going on, fellas? I see me and Bobby are totally representing here, but what's up with you other guys? Looks like we got to get more shirts out.
I'm representing. Yeah, that's right there. It's right there.
That'll do.
My t-shirt got my Spreadshop catalog banned off of YouTube. I can't do any Spreadshop stuff now.
Come on, YouTube.
Nice.
Hey, they don't like the pews. I'm telling you. And we've got another guest. He's running a little late. We hope he shows up. I'll introduce him when he gets here. Hey guys, before we start, I'm gonna throw the topic out so everybody understands why this conversation is taking place and what it's about. So I was watching the news back whenever the Virginia redistricting event was going on, before the Supreme Court turned it over because it was illegal as hell. And at the same time, the lizard man, James Carville, was talking about how they need to stack the Supreme Court. They need to get rid of the Electoral College. And it struck me. I said, I thought to myself that the left in America, the Democrats, are literally trying to box their opposition out through legal means. Mm-hmm. And I started pondering what happens after that. If they manage to do that, what happens? And so here's the key thesis for tonight. Okay, stable republics survive disagreement because people believe peaceful correction remains possible. The danger begins when they stop believing that. They start losing trust. And that's what your guys' channel. You guys put that up on your channels whenever you shared this out. And ultimately, that's what this conversation is about. What's causing this loss of trust, and what happens when people lose that trust. I mean, there's a huge community on both sides of the political aisle that have lost the trust, right? And so that's where the conversation is going. A little bit of housekeeping for everybody in chat. Hello, and thank you for showing up. The only questions we're going to take from chat tonight are super chats. I should be able to see the super chats on the Midwestern Preparedness channel and the Permaculture Pasture or Permaculture Farm. I'm having a hard time talking tonight, guys. I apologize.
Words are hard.
I should be able to see the super chats, and I will get them up there. Just know that if you're on one of their channels and you super chat, it does get credit to them. I'm not taking their money. Okay, I don't want to get into that hassle. So here's the first thing I want to talk about. Before we talk about what happens if the trust is completely gone, we need to talk about how it's being destroyed. And I ran across something today on a Clayton S. Wood Substack, and he posted this yesterday. And it's about how the census was misdone in 2020. It was taken under the Trump administration, but the Biden administration is one that collated all the numbers, and it ended up costing the Republicans about 15 House seats because of the way they did the numbers. But here's what he said. I will say it plainly with what data about the 2020 census permits saying. The errors ran systematically in one political direction, where historically unprecedented in scale were concentrated in the states with the highest political stakes for appointment, and occurred in an environment where incentive structure for cheating was high and consequences were effectively non-existent. Whether that reflects deliberate orchestration or simple and predictable outcome of a broken accountability system, the political effect was identical. And what he described right there is exactly what I'm talking about, that type of thing destroying people's trust. You guys want to make a comment on that? Just to say hi to everybody and then get into it. Bobby and Spags, what about you? Or Bobby and Patrick?
Yeah. But first and foremost, thanks for having us on the show tonight, Karen. We appreciate you. We love you, Grumpy G. I do have a serious question though.
Okay.
So, with all of the shenanigans going on in the YouTube sphere, with all of the words being bleeped, shows getting canceled, our homie Billy, he just got put on the naughty list, for saying a word that was just completely like passive. Should not have even been picked up by the censors. I want to see if you've got the cojones to reach back behind you and wield that Scottish claymore like your ancestors and see if they cancel us.
Oh boy, here we go. We're gonna figure it out real quick.
All right.
Right there.
All right, there you go, fellas. There you go, folks.
Yeah.
All right. Now I need you to hold it up in the air and say, "I have the power."
No. Freedom.
Okay, fair enough. That
By
worked.
the power of Grayskull. Oh wait, wrong crowd.
Thank you. Outstanding. All right, we're still on the air. That's good. That's good.
Yay.
No, it's good to be here, man. Good to be here. My homie Spags and I are we're holding it down here in the Midwest, along with Grumpy G. So yeah, this is a fantastic topic. It's very polarizing with the the midterms coming up. A lot of seats. You've seen what happened to old bitch McConnell and those crew out east. So what do you anticipate, Billy? I'm really curious about what you and Bobby. You guys tend to be polarists when it comes to your opinions. So, like, what do you guys feel is going to happen here in these midterms?
Go ahead, Bobby.
Well, I know what I kind of hope happens, and I know what probably will happen, and it's probably going to be very, 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 very close. My prediction is that the Democrats take the House. I think the Senate stays relatively split. Obviously, the executive's not going anywhere, and the Supreme Court isn't going anywhere. So the best outcome we're going to get from the midterms is the Democrats taking the House and putting a check on Trump's war policy. That's about the only good thing that I see coming out of it. If the Democrats take the House, they can form committees, they can do impeachment process, they can do any of the stupid things they want to do. But the thing is, it will likely end the war powers going on right now in Iran to some degree, which is probably the best outcome we could ask for. I know, in popular opinion, I'm not for the war in Iran. I think it's a horrible thing. The only people who are for the war are people who have never fought in one and whose kids probably aren't on the chopping block to go over because there's no boots on the ground yet. As far as the real concern is 2028. What happens in 2028? If you're going to hedge your bets on anything actually having real potential teeth to harm people like us, it's going to be what happens in 2028.
On the heels of that, we just witnessed something that was really, really weird that just happened in Kentucky. And I'm taking a backdoor kind of way of answering this. If you lack the fidelity of your elections, then you live in a third world banana republic.
Yep.
And you have a guy that supposedly won, and there was 20 people at his rally, 20 people at his victory celebration. We're finding out, and it's only a day removed, we're finding out that, all types of crazy shenanigans. I mean, this has been going on since the dimpled Chad area. Remember all that around 2000? Well, they can kiss my dimpled Chad because we get the brass tacks on all this stuff. Honestly, the shirt I'm wearing and Bobby has on right now kind of says it all. And yeah, I'll say it. We all niggas now.
Yep.
And why am I saying that? Because honestly, the powers that shouldn't be, I don't think there's a dime's worth of difference as far as who wins and who doesn't. Go right back to Carol Quigley's book that he wrote, Tragedy and Hope. He spelled it all out for everybody years ago. He was Bill Clinton's mentor. He basically said in a nutshell, and I'll paraphrase, that it really doesn't matter who you put in there. They're all working together. It really doesn't matter. I mean, people are lamenting. They're having the lamentations of Job right now over Massey's loss. But I got news for you. If Massey was the only honest politician out of 535 members of the House, this country was already going down the toilet. So as far as what I'm expecting in the midterms, it doesn't matter, but I do have to echo what I think Bobby's going to say. Everybody thinks it's going to be a massive bloodletting and the Democrats are going to take over. I really don't see it that way. I think they're going to take the House.
Yep.
As far as the Senate, I think they're going to leave it. It may go. They could win both House and Senate, and I promise you there will be no impeachment hearings that make it all the way to the removal. Yep. It's not going to happen. They're all in it together.
Yep.
So to narrow that down, kind of dial in to 0 for all of our jumbo yellow crown eating Marine friends out there watching tonight.
Sam, that's you, buddy.
I'm talking to you, Sam. That left wing, right wing, it doesn't matter. They're still attached to the same vulture feasting on the carcass of what was once the greatest nation in the history of the world.
Yep. Right cheek, left cheek, and what comes out of the middle is not good for anybody.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not a Massey fan. I think he's contrary just to be contrary sometimes in a non-productive way. Same thing with Rand Paul. Even with saying that, looking at it after the fact, what did they were saying $32 million worth of out-of-state funds came into his opponent's campaign. That's criminal. I'm sorry. That is just completely criminal, and I find it hard to believe that people that have elected him as many times as they have changed their minds.
Or suddenly didn't show up.
Right. Well,
the political winds are leaning in his favor. The public sentiment is more leaning towards what Massey had to say than it is the mainstream Republican Party. Which just goes to show that they're grappling and grasping at power. They're doing everything they can to keep their people in, and anybody who's an opposition voice, they're forcing out by any means necessary. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily speak to the legitimacy of the people or the non-legitimacy of the people who are being contrarian. I agree that Massey's contrarian. I tend to like contrarian people because they don't just go along with the flow, but most contrarians tend to be that way to their own detriment, which we likely just witnessed. Same with Marjorie Taylor Greene, same with Ron Paul in the past. And I'm not going to lie, I was a huge Ron Paul fan. Love that guy. Mm-hmm. But the reason he never won is because it's very hard to have a political campaign and a political message where the only thing you ever say is no. Even if you're supposed to be saying no, you're not going to get any votes that way, and you're certainly not going to win public favor. But today, the political winds are shifting. Gen Alpha and Gen Z are checked out. They are completely tired of everything happening, which is why you're seeing the numbers on the far right growing, and you're watching the rhinos and the neocons and the pro, I can't say that word, it'll get you canceled, but the pro J people lobby, all of that is shrinking. And that particular group of Republicans are about to go extinct. Gen X and boomers are not going to be around much longer in the political sphere. And at some point there's going to be a reckoning, and there's going to be a whiplash effect when that happens, if it ever gets to that point, if we haven't melted down yet.
Hey, real quick, can I give a shout out to the Todd, our crewman, the Todd out there in the comment section tonight, and our homie Sean down in Texas from Crunchy Mountain Farms. Good to see y'all. Thank you very much for checking us out tonight.
Hey, a number of people are saying, I don't know if it's something you have to do on your end, Garen, but they're saying that they're trying to do a super chat, but aren't given the option. It could be the nature of this topic.
Well, it has to be set up on your channel. So I've got it set up on mine. I just assume that you guys had it. So it may not be set up on your guys' channel.
No, it should be. I mean, if they break bread, I won't fake dead. I mean, I always got the super chat kicking.
There was an issue with the software companies that were doing super chats. A lot of them are out of Canada, and there are some of the number one streamers in the world right now. People like Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson were having their stuff shut down where they could not receive super chats. And they're fairly certain it was, the company said it was a problem with the software, but they're pretty certain it was an attack on them because that's how they make their money.
It's the lizard people.
Yeah, the lizard people, the nation state, whatever you want to call it. They don't like it when people are making money outside of their purview. So
absolutely.
It could absolutely be that. It's just a problem with the super chat software right now because that's happening.
Okay, well, if that's the case, if you guys, I'll keep an eye out for really good questions. If you're gonna post a question, capital letters, please, so it stands out, so I can see it, and we'll get it on there, and we'll see if we can't answer your question. Okay, so here's my first one for you guys. So what allows people to peacefully tolerate the political losses? Because the fear isn't losing politically. The fear is losing the ability to oppose politically, right? So what keeps people engaged in the system and keeps their trust and allows them to peacefully change over? We saw what happens when people don't trust with January 6th. right? And I'm not going to. That's not a judgment call. That's not anything I'm not endorsing or unendorsing or whatever. I think you guys probably know where I stand on that. But we saw what happens when people who normally follow the law and use the trust lose it. So what keeps people from doing that on a regular basis?
Rule of law. A lot of people are afraid right now, Garen, or complacent. One or the other. You look at the truckers' revolution. You look at the farmers' revolution. You look at these different movements that people have tried to gather. Whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's the guys that occupied the Chad. Like, look at all these different times where one side or the other chose to peacefully protest or march upon whatever it was they felt was their polarizing moment. It doesn't matter. I think it all goes back to what you guys said at the very beginning of this. Looking where we're headed, I think with the elections being either engineered or driven by some force unseen, it doesn't really matter. You've got people that are like obviously ultra polarized on either end of the spectrum. You got people that are like my dad. He's like red hat, like all day long. Like he lives, eats, sleeps, breathes. Donald J is the 5G chess master. And then you've got people on the other side that think Hillary should have won. Like it's so surreal to think the time that we live in, that we've been whittled down to a two-party system where people are so convicted in their beliefs that you think this is bad. Wait till it's 2028. Wait till it's 2032. Wait till it's more of that brown. What was the Hitler's little right arm that he used?
The brown shirts.
The brown shirts. Yeah. Wait till it's brown shirts here in the United States.
Well, are you talking about Antifa?
I don't know that Antifa qualifies as brown shirts. They might be more like black shirts, but yeah.
Black and red.
Well,
no, it's interesting you use the word trust when it comes to this, because Western society was built and functioned for 200 years at least on what's known as a high trust society. You had a mostly similar makeup of people, and that makeup is dwindling and it's changing. The landscape is changing in the United States to now where you have people from low trust societies being imported in mass into our society. So the H-1B issue, that's a real problem. Illegal immigration, that's a real problem. The State Department feeling sorry for displaced groups of people from Ivory Coast countries or from Gulf Coast countries and importing them all to, I don't know, somewhere in Michigan. That's a problem. So part of the reason that there's no more trust amongst the general American population for the political system is because the political system is now taken over by low trust factions, which are weaponizing the systems that were put in place for us against us in their favor. And there's no consequence to it. They're all going to the Leering centers or starting an old person's home that has no tenants in San Francisco, whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. And we see this being broadcast live, and we see our elected leaders doing nothing. We see law enforcement standing down and not doing what is needed to enforce the law. We see law enforcement at the state or local level fighting with the federal law enforcement, not backing them up, not sending ambulances and fire and EMS when needed. So I think that's where a lot of the distrust comes from, is we have gone from a high trust society, which was, what evolved from Europe and came over to the United States. And that has been replaced with, replacements. And it's not going very well for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you think that's bad now, wait till, if you think the trust is eroding now, let's consider what's right here in the front of the headlines right now. I mean, we have the Strait of Hormuz shut down. Okay. Everything you need for manufacturing, like I've worked in my electrical career in at least 4 different tire plants. The Goodyear plant, I think in Topeka, worked at the one in Oklahoma, worked in the one in Texarkana, and there's one more in a place that I can't remember. Do you know how you vulcanize rubber? Well, you use sulfuric acid. And do you know where like most of it comes from? It's from the Middle East. Okay, you know what else is coming out of there? Helium. You don't have these chips that are going to be going in all these data centers that everybody's upset about right now. But here's the most important part. When nobody's going to stop to consider how many Africans are dying because the fuel needs that they need to run their countries and all over, that part of the world, when all of a sudden it's not arriving, okay, that's going to create another thing. But when does it really start to affect us here at the United States of Amnesia? Because there are overtures right now of, there's already been a shot over the bow, so to speak, quite literally, right there at the Panama Canal. You shut that one down, you got problems, nephew. What about the biggest one that nobody's talking about and will almost certainly happen if this thing escalates, and that's the Straits of Malacca? Yep. You shut that one down, folks, I got news for you. You think it ain't coming? You think the chickens ain't coming home to roost? They're coming home to roost as it stands right now with just the Straits of Hormuz shut down. You have AutoZone putting out letters the other day saying, hey, better get all the oil you need right now because we're about to run out.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is motor oil. I'm having it changed in my truck tomorrow. So everybody, if you think the trust is a problem right now, I've said for years and years and years and years now, ever since I was doing talk radio in Kansas City, you're going to see a constant degeneration, depravity, if you will, unfold in the United States of Amnesia until one thing happens. Yep. And that's when the food gets compromised. When all of a sudden people are struggling to put, that is the only known antidote to a decadent society is starvation, mass starvation. And sadly, I'm not trying to be the contrarian, but I got to tell it like it is. If this thing holds on, we're 80 some days into this thing at the Straits of Hormuz. They start to shut down the Straits of Malacca or the Panama Canal. Hold on to your hat, because if you think trust is eroding right now, you haven't seen anything. And honestly, I think that is the motive of the powers that shouldn't be. Is to constantly, there are too many, like Bobby just said a moment ago, and even Patrick to a certain extent, you have people, you're bringing in low trust society people to the coldest part of this country. Look.
Right?
I'm down in the Kansas boy, man. I know what it's like to be cold, but we ain't talking Minneapolis cold. I mean, it's cold there, but you're taking these people and dropping a bunch of banana eating, bean farting Africans over in the middle of Minneapolis. What do you think is going to happen? It's about to get real. So I might have drifted a little bit too far, but I'm saying the trust is
No. Hey, Bill, you said we're 87 days in. It's just 87 days to flatten the curve. Don't worry.
Well, no, and you leaned into the loss of trust really, really well, and that actually brings us to the next thing I was going to ask about. With the loss of trust, at some point, I guess the question is, with the loss of trust, at what point does that turn into a question about the legitimacy of the government? Right? Or have we reached the point where enough people, where a majority of the people are looking at our government, and I'm not saying the Trump administration, I'm saying the U.S. government as an institution, it is legitimate or not. And I'm not talking, and again, I'm not talking the radical leftist where we're living on stolen land. I'm talking about your NASCAR dads and your soccer moms that are seeing the effects of the uniparty, as people call it, affecting your children directly. Have we reached that point yet, or is there still room to go down that road?
Not even close, man.
I don't know. It depends how you define it. We have had less than 35% of the public voting now for decades. I think that the loss of trust in the government has been there systemically for a very long time. The problem is that it hasn't matched the starvation level. Mm-hmm. So until you're cold and hungry and not trusting, that's when things get weird.
Yeah, when people are actually having to cancel their Netflix subscription and buy a bag of rice or beans, that's when I think we'll hit that rock bottom. But until we get to that point where people are not ordering their lattes from their phone app and having DoorDash bring them, a $4 cup of coffee and paying $9 to have it delivered, we're not even close, not even remotely close. It's going to be a good hard reset before that happens.
You guys said it all right there. I mean, we are a society that knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. There was a guy with a whole lot of sense that once said that. And when you hit a level of depravity and decadence, I mean, for crying out loud, we just found out in the United States of Amnesia that the ruling elite are eating children, and everybody yawned. They yawned to the point that I was so upset and aggravated. My wife and I, we were going at each other, couldn't figure out why or where this tension was coming from. And it was the overwhelming, maybe I should say the United States of apathy, because the overwhelming apathy, when they just discovered, okay, it didn't happen to their kids, I guess they didn't care at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
And until you hit that point, when you hit this, history proves it. In fact, I challenge anybody in this listening audience to find me one case in history where depraved, and yes, we are in fact a depraved society, and the metric of it, the barometer, was finding out that these willing elite are eating children and everybody yawns. Until that point, until you hit a point of starvation, there is no recovery. Just like you guys were saying a moment ago, until dad is no longer able to keep his Chiefs seasons tickets, until mom is not able to go out there and, you know, go out on a girls' night out, and believe me, it's perilously close for a whole lot of people out there. Until you hit that point, and we haven't even, like Patrick said, we haven't even touched that yet. But you let that Strait of Malacca shut down, you're going to see some problems, nephew. I mean, you're already going to see some problems in a big way. Gas is outrageous, and it's about to go through the roof. The only reason it hasn't already is we're tapping into the strategic oil reserve. Well, when that goes dry, where are we then? This is, I don't think for a minute that any of this isn't planned. Just like FDR said, if it happens in government, you better believe it was planned, or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, and I've always held that the soccer moms and NASCAR dads hold the true political power in their hands. I mean, the Civil Rights Act was passed because white middle Americans, the traditional soccer moms and NASCAR dads of that time, backed it, and they've always held the power. And I think at some place they lost the script, and they don't understand the power that they wield. And you kind of hit on it, and I agree 100%. You know, true change will not come in this country until those people are looking at their little Susie and their little Bobby across the table, and they're wondering how they're going to put food on their plate the next day. Yeah, that Bobby. But you know, you guys, I think you're spot on with that, man. So I identified, I came up with some things that I think are part of the cause of this lack of trust and the lack of the coming lack of legitimacy, if you will. And I want to run these by, and I want to see what you guys think about this. So the issue here is not whether people are angry, and there are angry people. The issue is why an increasing number of them believe that the normal political mechanisms no longer meaningfully change the outcomes. And so we've got the first category is elections without reversal. Can you guys speak on that? How have policies really changed? I mean, from where I'm sitting, I'm not 100% happy with Trump, but I also can look at the small things that he's doing that are structural changes that most people don't see, like little court rulings and policy changes that are set in the record books, you know, in the written down on paper now, not just executive orders. I see those things. But is there a big enough swing in policy whenever elections happen to really make a difference in the outcome?
No, I don't think that it's an issue of policy changes. I think it's an issue of saturation. So when you have a common tide of the same sorts of policies, it'll never work from a top down. They have to, I'm going to use the word they generically. I think you can insert whatever lizard group of people you want into that. But as the popularity of the progressive mind virus spreads, it's no longer the president or the Congress. They're actually very inconsequential. Very little that they do touches you. But it's when now you have white guilt-ridden liberal women on your city council. It's when you have white guilt-ridden pacifist dudes who are now your sheriff or your county commissioner or your fill in the blank. It's the saturation that matters, not the policy itself. The policy, at one point, LA was just a bastion of liberal F pie. And we all knew it, and it didn't touch us. But now it's saturating, it's migrating, it's crossing into Colorado, into New Mexico, now into Texas. And we're seeing deep purple pockets pop up in red America because the saturation is growing of the same trend, of the same. They're always going to give you a little victory when your team's in power. You're always going to get little victories all along the way. It's how they keep the base pacified. It's how they keep you apathetic. Oh, look at that. That libtard got owned. Or over on the other side, that right-wing Nazi got punched in the face, right? Like, okay, everyone gets a little victory, but the saturation continues. And at some point, you reach that critical mass when you become a low-trust society and the food runs out and the oil runs out, where all of a sudden you're going to stand there realizing you're up to your waist in the swamp, in the sponginess of that saturation. And that's really where it's going to hit.
Okay.
You know, the late 1960s, a cat named Yuri Bezmenov, he was a socialist media. I guess he was what was it? I can't
He
think
was a
of his exact
KGB
title.
defector from the Soviet Union.
Yeah, but his title, he was like a social handler. So his job was to steer public opinion and kind of takes, people around the Soviet Union, show them this, beautiful picture. Anyways, long story short, he came here and he pretty much nailed this. He traveled all around the United States, talking about what this communist manifesto was, how they were going to do this, subvert these local politics, work their way up into the state houses, and then eventually into the White House. And they were going to do exactly what you just described there, Garrett, a death by 1,000 cuts. They put us in a position where we justify the ruling class and how we're being managed, because that's what we're doing. We're being managed by justifying all of these, like you said. Well, I see these little microcosms of good that are going on while ignoring the babies getting eaten. Oh, but look, they're gonna disclose aliens like any day now. They just admitted lizard people are real. Oh, wait, Ebola is threatening the country. Make sure you get your vaccine. So all of these little bitty minutia things that kind of come together and form this big puzzle picture, this jigsaw in the background, people are oblivious to. I think the Out of Doors guys said it somewhere in the chat. He said he believes we've got to this place through lack of conviction by apathy and crisis fatigue. Hillary said it best: never let a good crisis go to waste. I think several people have said that throughout the history.
Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah, they've all said never let a good crisis go to waste. And look where we are. We just jump from crisis to crisis to crisis. We get so spun up. And like Billy mentioned, like nobody stormed, there was no January 6th over the babies getting eaten. There was no January 6th over the promise of releasing the Epstein files on day one. There was no, January 6th on any of the real things that we should have been polarized on. But yet here we are still ordering our lattes, still going and getting our oil changed, all of the nonsense.
There wasn't even a January 6th on January 6th.
There wasn't even a January 6th on January 6th.
Okay,
right. They were practically tailgating.
Yeah,
Billy, this one's for you because you just suffered from this.
Hang on, that's not true. Ashley Babbitt actually experienced January 6th.
Well, this is true.
That is true.
So this question's for you. All right. This is the next category, and this is dissent without effect. If elections occur and policy directions don't change, is your dissent worthwhile? Censorship, algorithm locks, things like that. Where, in your opinion, where are we on that road? How far down are we on that road before that really becomes a structural issue?
Well, I don't think we're a step down that road so far, because I'll put it this way. When you have bums in Asheville with Netflix subscriptions and brand new sneakers, it kind of sets things, you have got to have that crucible of really hard times to make any kind of reasonable change at this point. I think
Chief, check the notes. Our homie showed up.
Oh, okay, cool. So we got to move into the party.
Okay, hey guys, listen. This is, I'm going to add him to the stage. Everybody say hi to Dogman 88.
What's up, buddy?
What's going on? My apologies for being fashionably late. I always try.
Well, they were talking about it.
Buddy, you can make it up to us by standing up and showing us you're wearing a shirt just like Billy's.
No, but I do love that.
Okay. Oh, dang. All right. Fair.
I can only claim 13%. That's what I'm good for.
Okay. All right.
That'll do. No, I was like, okay, man, this guy's in shadow, man. He looks like he'd murder somebody over an $8 bet, so I'm not going to be talking any junk to him, man.
Okay, all right.
I'm just using a hat to cover my big ass forehead. That's all.
It's a 5-head.
No, I'm wearing my my Pineland shirt. So yeah. Yeah. So my apologies for being late.
The organized opposition right there.
No, I'm not the op. I'm the I play one of the gorillas. So
okay.
I'm the gorilla camp sergeant major for one of the lanes. So
That's cool. That'd be a fun
yeah,
gig. Man. So we are
it's cool.
what we're talking about is basically loss of trust and where that leads us whenever one side or the other is structurally changing the government so that dissent is impossible, and what happens when we get there. And right now we're talking about the some of the things that are happening that cause people to lose trust, which ultimately leads to a loss of legitimacy in the government. It's the structure of the government, the institution of the government, not necessarily any political party or anything, but just the government itself. And Billy just got done talking about the dissent without effect. I'll throw this one to you. Selective enforcement of laws, selective punishment. I mean, that's a real thing in today's America. How far do you think it is it's developed, and how far do you think it has to go before people step back and go, this doesn't work?
Well, as far as how high it goes today, I don't know that there's an actual limit. And how far back it goes, I think it goes back probably a lot farther than any good normal American would actually be willing to admit. And if you think about like the founding fathers, we call them the founding fathers. They were flawed men trying to create a new system, but they're flawed men, like we all are, who tried to create a system that they thought at the time was really going to work. All men created equal, which, if you think about it, that's the glorious dream, right? All men created equal. There is no difference. But in reality, back then, a lot of them did believe that there was a big difference between all of us. And I don't know if I would say it was a pipe dream. I'd like to think that it still is 100% available to this country. But if you take that and you compound it over time and space and distance to where we are now, we have allowed ourselves as a country to get to the point where when elected officials go up to Washington or the state level or wherever, we just let them take those decisions and run with it. Where it used to be, they had to seek our permission. Mm-hmm. And it almost seems like the permission that they needed to seek from us back then, we're okay with them not seeking that permission anymore.
Right.
And because we're okay with not having them seek our permission, we have therefore given them a ticket to continue to live that inequity. And as long as there are good people who are unwilling to actually stand up and say, hey, I want my money back, or you're fired, because they work for us. Right. Every single elected official, regardless of what party or whatever it is, they work for us, and people have forgotten that. I really do truly believe that they don't realize that we are their boss. We tell them what they can and cannot do. And the only power that they actually have is derived from that permission from their constituents. And 99% of the people in this country have forgotten that.
So, and you talking about the Constitution brings me to the last category, and and that's constitutional constraints as obstacles for governance. The first gay president alluded to the fact that he was frustrated that the Constitution did not allow him to become a dictator. Right. And from where I'm sitting, I'm seeing a lot of activity predominantly on the control side of the political spectrum, the people that want to control your daily life, talking about doing things in either to circumvent the Constitution or actually change it, like getting rid of the Electoral College, stacking the Supreme Court. And in fact, Virginia, after the Virginia Supreme Court overturned the redistricting thing, the Senate or the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, got on with the Dems down there, and we're talking about lowering the retirement age of the Supreme Court to 57, so they could just dump everybody and then stack the court with left-leaning judges. You know,
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw that out to you guys. What are your thoughts on that, and where do you think that leads us when stuff like that happens?
Well, I'll chime in on something real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
The fact that the Democratic Party even exists at this point is actually pretty shocking to me. And the only reason that it does exist in the manner in which it does right now is the majority of Democrats have absolutely no idea about anything to do with history, actual real history, and who the Democrats are. And I don't know how that happened. And I don't know at what point in time in history, somehow or another, they took Republicans, or let's not even use Republicans, conservatives versus liberals, whatever you want to call it, how they flipped that thing around.
Well, it's the propaganda. Patrick mentioned Bezmenov earlier, you know, and that was one of the big things he talked about, how they subvert America. I mean, my gosh, we got white people propagandized so hard that they're demonstrating against white people. Just
Yes.
the fact that
Yeah.
they're white.
Yeah.
Yeah, the level of self-deprivation is ridiculous at this point. Look, guys, you have to take your own side. You got to stop taking a political side. Take your own side. Why do we care about, honestly, the taking of the side of somebody else? And you brought up where it started. Well, we probably can't pinpoint where it started, but we can certainly tell where it wound up. And it was the Bolshevik takeover of American public education. They stopped teaching civics. They stopped teaching math. They stopped teaching all of this stuff, at least in the traditional senses. And now everything is feelings-based and method-based, and everything is about
based.
It's all about questioning your own country, questioning your own past. In the attempt to right perceived wrongs or real wrongs, we've gone to the other extreme now, where we hate everything about how we are and where we came from. People are literally standing on the backs of giants and bitching about the view. And it's about the most disgraceful thing that you can have out of your own country. And at no point would any country do that to themselves. This was calculated. This was a Bolshevik takeover of the education system. And then furthermore, a Bolshevik occupation of the higher education system. And it was, again, sewing circle, I think Andrew Wilson uses this term. He calls them the sewing circle Christians. The ones who were all high and mighty about not going out dancing on Friday night, not playing cards, who couldn't give two shits about the fact that their husbands were banging the secretary as long as he was bringing home the $120,000 a year. Like, it started really there. I think the 60s were the most pivotal decade that accelerated that saturation I was talking about earlier. And in those key areas, specifically the moral decay, the lack of care about the people who are supposed to care, and then the education system just completely abandoning education and embracing indoctrination.
So is that coincidental that in that same time period where the most obvious degradation of culture in America spiraled out of control through the late 60s, into the 70s, through the Vietnam War, and where we have ended up now as a culture and a society is the exact same time my dog, Yuri Bezmenov, came over here and told us, literally opened the playbook and said verbatim, this is what their plan is. And then here we are living in the nightmare of what that painting that he painted all those years ago. And people are, again, we're still having this debate about whether or not we can trust the government. We know we can't trust the government. We know that it's been, since the Federal Trade Reserve founding, the sinking of the Titanic, we can go back to all of these different periods throughout time where something has happened and people just turn a blind eye because they took verbatim, the ringer that went through town handing out newspapers, or whoever controlled the media at the time, said, this is what the facts are. If people read that shit and said, yep, that's what he said. Walter Cronkite said it. It must be true.
Oh,
we really did land on the moon in 1960, whatever.
Billy, you want to wrap this part
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, I think part of it is the loss of our understanding of real history. I mean, everything that we know is, like Napoleon said, a lie agreed upon when it comes to our history. But I'm glad you brought up Yuri Bezmenov because I'm a big fan. it also goes back to our media, and he had a lot to say about media. He said, in Russia, we had a media system that was every bit as corrupt as the one you have in America. And then he goes on to say that the only difference between the Russians and the modern Americans at that time was that the Russians didn't believe it. He made that parallel. But then he also talked about history. For example, a whole lot of bad things happened in 1913. I won't list them all, but among them being that, because I think Patrick was just saying, or maybe it was Bobby. I'm sorry, all you guys look the same to me.
Hey, that's racism. You can't say that.
Hey, don't make me pull my card out of my wallet and display my privilege.
You go on ahead and say that. I love that. That's awesome.
Bro, the bottom line is that if you go back and look, everybody has kind of forgotten. We had once learned, remember that thing that they had back in the 70s and the 80s, how Bill becomes a law. It was on like the Saturday morning cartoons, the whole 9 yards. You know what else we forgot about is that how U.S. senators were not elected by popular vote.
Right.
They were elected by states.
State legislatures.
State legislatures were the ones that put them in there because they would always do what was in the interest of the state. Mm-hmm. So you can see this dismantling happening in 1913, that being among some of the awful, dastardly things that have unfolded there. But because we don't know our history, as cliche as it may sound, here we are destined to relive it. And so it all comes together. I take the conspiratorial view of most history. Now, in fairness, I'm a political atheist. I see the Republicans and the Democrats. I don't know why anybody would ever claim to be either one of them at this point. I really don't. As a political atheist, I can crap on pretty much all of them. And at the end of the day, it's like nobody remembers exactly where any of this stuff began and what it is wrought from all that time. So they're playing a long game. This is why I think we're dealing with, I'm not going to go too sideways here, but I think there are malevolent forces that are almost like puppeteers controlling a lot of these people, because you see a continuity of the plan that goes from 1913 even further back. I think I can make a historical case for that. I think from the top of my head, I could probably fill volumes of all the reasons why I think it went on long before then. But anyway, let's say it all started at 1913. Somehow, in the entropy of politics, the cohesion somehow of that plan that was hatched back then, is we see it unfolding right now. And it all ties in with exactly with what Yuri Bezmenov talked about. I'm not even so sure that it was the perestroika policies that made all that happen. I think we're just falling apart from entropy in so many different ways.
Okay. You know what? We're going to change gears here, because we've identified the problem and we've talked about the symptoms. All right. And the thing that led me to ask you guys to come on here is the fact that I see a trajectory where the average people like us are going to be locked out of any opposition through legalized means. They're going to legalize us not being able to do anything. They're going to stack the courts. They're going to make it so we cannot dissent, right? Anything we do is just performative in nature. It does absolutely nothing to change what's going on. And that brings us to the hard stop in all this, because when that happens and people are locked out of the political process like that, they have no more options. All right. And the only recourse at that point is the Second Amendment. And the reason why I bring this up like this is because I see tons of people online. We need to take up arms. We need to take up arms. In fact, I've got the Freedom Requires Maintenance shirt on, which you can get spread shop down below. Go buy one if you want one. Anyway, there's my plug. It's the violent action is the last resort, and it proves that everything else has failed. Right. So I think it's important. People need to understand exactly what the Second Amendment is about. And I think the first step in doing that is, let's talk about the philosophical role of the Second Amendment here. If we would, if you guys want to talk, I got a dog bumping my table. I'm going to kill him.
mine's downstairs. Absolutely.
Angie, knock it off.
Let's talk about the philosophical role of the Second Amendment. And is it for deterrence or is it for defense? And there's a distinct difference there.
Well, I'd like to chime in real quick on that one. before you can talk about the Second Amendment, I think a quote from Thomas Jefferson needs to be brought up. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants, and it is natural. How many people have an actual understanding of what the real meaning of the Second Amendment is? Not many. They think it just means that I get to have a gun because this thing says that I get to have a gun. It is so much more big than that. It means that we as a people have the right to stand up a well-armed and regulated militia in order to not only dispose, but replace a governance that has gone outside of its constitutional authority. But that right there, that part, that constitutional authority, that's what because so many people are, for lack of a better term, not informed or ignorant of the actual Constitution, because you're right. Those back in the 70s and 80s, when I was a kid, I'm just a bill, that song with the little dude up on the court.
Yep.
Yeah. They don't watch that anymore. They don't preach that anymore. They don't talk about it. They don't talk about it in school. And because we have, what are we talking here? Probably 3 generations worth of people who are completely ignorant of the Constitution. How many people are actually willing to stand up and actually go tell the government, stop what you're doing, fix this, or then we pull out the guns? How many people are actually willing to actually, do that? And when you see movies that romanticize that, and when you see things in the media, like we the movie Civil War,
Yeah.
I watched that movie 3 or 4 times in a row to kind of pick up on the nuances of different things. And I really do truly believe that, is that a possibility? Yes. Would it be absolutely horrific? I think so also, yes, because nobody understands that it wouldn't just be a quick, we show up to Washington and, hey, you guys suck at this, we're replacing you. It wouldn't work like that. And the reason being is you go back to constitutional authority, and even though it may not be great, those folks up in Washington are really good at conducting what they're doing under the guise of constitutional authority. And when something doesn't go their way, or they can't do a particular thing, they sign another bill and they sign another executive order, or they do these things over and over and over again. So if you were to look at the original Constitution back then when it was written, and you look at it now, the one now looks like a mountain compared to what it was back then.
Well, and you bring up a good point. Americans, when we put our minds to something, we do it, and we do it very hard, and we do it very well. And that's the real danger in this whole scenario that we set up to get to this point is, the danger is not the violence itself. The danger is that people are getting to the point where there's more talk. You've got newscasters, politicians talking about violence being the only remaining answer. And that's the danger there. Oh my God.
Yeah, the violence.
Yeah, we got some violence, some dog on dog violence.
That's all I'm here for is violence.
Yeah, mom just got home and they're
It's never an option.
No, but that's, the is the real danger the violence, or is it the fact that people are getting to the point where they think that's the only option? We know that a large section of the political leftist part, the control part, has decided that violence is the answer to the problem, to the point where they're fangirling about it.
I think that's actually the bigger problem, is what side is actually more willing to be violent. Is it the side that's been clutching their pearls about the Second Amendment for the last 50 years, and there will never be another Ruby Ridge, there will never be another Waco, and then we get another Ruby Ridge, or we get another Waco, and they don't do anything? Or is it the side that was anti-gun forever, who now all of a sudden is not just espousing violence, but committing it regularly at regular intervals? So that, to me, is the biggest part of the danger. Is it's not the people that you would have thought. it's the other side who you never would have guessed 20 years ago it would be this way.
Well, if I could I'm sorry, I've got to throw in 2 quick points on that.
Do it.
And I know we keep hitting history. Have y'all ever read the book Color, Communism, and Common Sense?
No, I don't have that one.
You got to read it because it was written back in the 50s, and it is a extremely terrifying and accurate description of everything that happened in between, or actually at the beginning of the first Trump administration, all the way through Biden until now.
Okay.
And then Color, Communism, and Common Sense.
Okay.
It's a short read, but it literally describes everything that has happened now. And if I'm not mistaken, it was written by Mason Weaver. I'd have to double check that. And then if you look at that combined with the Communist Manifesto, they said they were going to take over the country without firing a single shot. That's exactly what they've done. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I guess if you want to call them the left now, I mean, look at what they elected Mamdani into New York. Right. In our lifetime, did we ever at any point in time think that a man would be able to openly admit to being a socialist and be elected to the largest city in the United States of America? I never once in my lifetime up until that happened thought this is actually going to happen. I thought it was always going to be a threat, but we are actually living through it.
Bernie Sanders syndrome. They always got close, but never close enough.
Buddy, you really have to question the legitimacy of all of that, though. Did he actually get elected? Did Massey actually lose his election? Did these things actually happen? Did all of these votes magically appear at the ballot box? 20 minutes to midnight. Did these things really happen? And Billy, for you, I need you to lean forward. Do me a favor, real quick. Lean forward. Get real close to the camera. Look over your glasses like this. Look down over your glasses. Yeah, and now look at Garrett and say, "Yeah, well, what kind of American are you?"
Okay. For the record, I thought Civil War was a stupid movie in total.
Well,
but the entire, if you get a chance to watch it, that entire scene with Jesse Plinkton, that from the beginning of that scene to the end of it, the whole transaction thing, that's one of the creepiest things I've seen on well, it was on television because I watched it here at home, but that is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen because that was realistic. That outcome of that entire transaction there, or that scene, is what's in store for people, and I don't think people understand that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation. Billy, what do you think the philosophical role of the Second Amendment is, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's already been stated largely, and I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think fundamentally, the Second Amendment, they were, the First Amendment, people tend to forget. The First Amendment is not freedom of speech alone. There's 5 things in there: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to assemble peaceably and petition the government. And then when we talk about the Second Amendment, I'm glad you pointed it out a moment ago where, what does it say? A well-regulated militia. It kind of defines it. It lays it out there. It puts more response. It's not just, hey, just take a gun and have a nice day. But if I could, I'd twist off a little bit and say, I think we're making a big mistake by thinking there's any distinctions between any of these two parties, whether it's Mamdani, who's pure scum, or Trump, as I see him, as pure scum. He betrayed every last one of us sitting here, did it the second day in office when he sat here and gave $500 billion to Bezos and all the others, $500 billion. And then all the other things he's doing, I think it's a mistake to think that there's any distinction between any of these people. If we go back and look at the fundamental message of people like G. Edward Griffin, and even if you listen to all of the statements that were made by Bezmenov, and then you take Carol Quigley, and as I mentioned a moment ago, there is zero distinction. I don't understand how there's any belief that there is any distinction at this point.
Here's the problem with Billy. Here's my counter to that. So there's a difference between a nation and a country. All right. A nation is a group of people that are bound together through either ethnic, culture, language, religion, whatever. That's a nation. A country is a political unit that is governed by a government, right? That has a formal government. There could be many nations in underneath the government. And right now there are two Americas. There are two Americas that exist simultaneously in this in the country. The first one is the America that believes in the founding of the country, the morals and ethos, the Judeo-Christian roots of the founding of this country, and what the founding fathers espoused in the Constitution and through the Federalist Papers and all that. There's another America that is a post-constitutional America, and it is Marxist. And when I talk about right and left, that's the type, that's the dynamic I'm talking there. I think you guys 100%. The United States government, Democrat, Republic, different wings on the same bird. That seriously, that's what it is. And when I start talking the left and right, and I use those terms because it is what people understand. When I'm talking about left and right, I'm talking about that post-constitutional America versus the constitutional foundational America.
So traditionalists versus progressives.
Well, then to finish that thought, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're looking for any, if we're looking for any kind of synthesis in any of this, then it goes right back to that Second Amendment. Sadly, we are at a point right now. I'll put it this way. What if the Epstein client list were released 150 years ago? There would have been public hangings out there. There would have been people, there would have been blood in the street, quite literally 150 years ago. There's a reason why I'm picking that time in particular. But I'm saying that's the demarcation point. We've hit a point of depravity right now that it doesn't even matter where the betrayal comes from, whether it's from the left, from the right. And as I said a moment ago, I see no distinction between them. It's the Democrats and the Republicans, as Jesse Ventura once put it. and I tend to agree with him. But regarding that Second Amendment,
let's see.
There is nobody, I don't see anybody standing up to do anything until they are starving and starving badly. There's only one time, I didn't finish that thought earlier. There's only two times in history a decadent society has ever corrected itself without that crucible of really hard times. The first time was in the Bible in Nineveh. And guess what? They still ultimately got dealt with. The second time, nobody ever talks about. It was the greatest generation, or what some people call the greatest generation. But what forged that greatest generation? You had the 1920s, chicken in every pot, depravity that was really starting to blow up. What happened? 1929, depression. Nobody ever talks about it, but we lost 8 to 10 million people to starvation at a time where 90% lived rurally, 10% lived in the city. Those numbers are now flopped. And we have a population of people that no longer know how to skin a butt and run a trot line. We don't have that population anymore. So until we get back to the point, I hate to say it, I mean, it pains me to even say it, until we hit that crucible of really hard times, the Second Amendment isn't even going to be considered. And by that time, it may be too late.
Well, and you dovetail right into what I was going to say. The two Americas that I described cannot exist simultaneously within the country for any amount of time. And it's at some point, that crucible that you're talking about is going to come to fruition. It's going to happen. It's just the nature of human beings. We cannot exist simultaneously in the same space and same time.
I think another way that you can actually, and I hate to use the word divide, but if you had to use the word divide between those two types of people that you're referring to, it's the people who actually still refer to this country, the famous word that politicians have been using way too much for the past 50 to 60 years, democracy. We are not.
No.
Yep.
We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic, and there are way too many uses, especially my favorite. This person is a threat to democracy.
Oh, yeah.
We're not a damn democracy. We're a constitutional republic. We were never meant to be a democracy. A democracy is a stylism of debate and actually coming to a rule.
Well, that
and
goes
it's
back,
majority rules.
That goes back and touches on the historically ignorant people. I mean, how many, if you ask 10 people, how many people do you think would know about the Battle of Athens in America? How many people do you think would know about that?
Buddy, they don't make those comments about, this person is a threat to democracy for people like you and I and the rest of us in the comment section. Those types of statements are meant to polarize the people that literally will be in this seat 10, 15 years from now When you and I are too old, we're too decrepit, we're too sore, our back hurts, whatever the thing is that we cannot actually pick up our sword, our shield, our lynching rope, our pitchfork and torches. By the point where we get so decrepit, those soy latte boys that right now, that what'd you call them?
Gen Alpha and Gen Z.
The Gen Alpha and the Gen Z kids, when they are in this position, they will not have a clue how to use the weapons of war that actually were defined in the Second Amendment. They will not be able to organize a cohesive thought, let alone a cohesive battle for Battle of Athens or Battle of Topeka or Battle of
whatever.
Asheville.
Battle of Asheville. The Flamingo Wars.
I'm glad you brought that up, Darren. I'm so glad you brought that up because, man, that is a piece of history that really should be taught. Man, there's a really solid video out there, like a dramatic version of the Battle of Athens. Man, you talk about Americana at its finest, right there, there. That
good old boys.
Exactly.
Put one in the chat if you guys don't know what the Battle of Athens is, and we'll go into it real quick. But and while we're waiting for people to respond,
I got you, Sean.
I was talking with somebody that most of you know, and he was bagging on Trump, and he was saying that within 2 years he would have thought that the bleeding would stop. Listen, guys, I've said it before. It took us multiple decades to get here. The bleeding is not going to stop. If we get 8 more years of President Vance and 8 more years of President Rubio, it's still not going to stop. It will not have stopped by that time. You cannot, because not only are they trying to stop the bleeding, they're trying to stop new bleeds that are happening all the time. And it's yes, Trump deserves a lot of the hate that he's getting. He definitely deserves it. But it's taken a long time to get here. It's going to take a long time to get back. My kid, it will probably not be resolved when he's done. My grandchildren, maybe, but it took us 150 years to get here. It's going to take us that much longer to get back. Okay, so we got people that do not know about the Battle of Athens. Does somebody want to give them the cliff notes about the Battle of Athens?
Sure. In a nutshell, right there was it Athens, Georgia? I know it was Athens. Okay, so you have World War II vets that went off over there, gave everything they had. They came back, and then basically you got Boss Hogg, as I remember it. I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. They basically got a Boss Hogg. Ain't that funny? Dukes of Hazzard did take place in Georgia anyway. So anyway, they got Boss Hogg down there. Maybe that was kind of inspired by this. That decided they didn't care what the people voted for, and this guy just, they took as I understand it, they took the voting, the ballots or whatever, and wouldn't let the public see it. And a bunch of World War II vets said, no, we didn't just go over there and bleed and die to come back here and deal with this. So they got every good old boy they could. They stormed the castle, so to speak, right there. Got the votes. Come to find out that the guy that won didn't win, and they set things right. And that's, I think, Garen, that's the whole reason why that story is suppressed, because you talk about the ultimate Robin Hood story right there, man. These guys set things right, and people all of a sudden, I mean, you talk about a story that should be told in a big way. I'm pretty sure there is a dramatic interpretation of this.
Athens, Tennessee is Gregory Kissel says Athens, Tennessee. And yes, there's a late 70s, early 80s movie on that, it was a TV movie. It was good. But the reading the history about it, is the television version of it did not capture even one iota of what happened and what it was about. But it was a bunch of Americans standing up for their rights and bleeding on behalf of, making a true sacrifice.
Well, I can tell you,
who remembers about the March of the Bonus Army after World War One?
Mm-hmm.
You had the March of the Bonus Army, and you had at the time, I think it was Colonel Eisenhower, who ordered the federal U.S. military to fire on World War I veterans that were camped out in front of the White House.
It was
MacArthur was in on it too.
Several died.
It was MacArthur that did it.
Yeah.
Was it MacArthur? I thought it was Eisenhower. Eisenhower was involved with that somehow.
Yeah. I think he was a young Eisenhower then.
Yeah, much younger than when he obviously became the president. But this story is played out multiple times.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that will never be in your history book at your public re-education center.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. You talk about the bar. Okay, so we're talking about lost history. I know we may be going a little far afield, but it goes right back to right after the Revolutionary War. Those guys
Whiskey
weren't.
Rebellion.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
They weren't paid. I mean, this goes all the way back to Julius Caesar, not even paying the seventh. I can't remember what not brigade, but whatever.
Praetorian Guard.
No, it wouldn't have been the Praetorian Guard. It would have been one of the
Secret Service.
Anyway, the one example that we can all know about, I mean, Caesar basically said, okay, yeah, you guys help me in this civil war, we'll get you paid. Well, just like it goes all the way back then. The soldiers get screwed every single time.
Yes,
But,
we do. Yeah, we do.
Okay, so we've identified the problem. We talked about the hard stop of the Second Amendment, and if it comes to it, why it's important. Anybody that's watched my channel for a while knows that I talk about black pills and white pills. And the black pills are all the negative stuff, all the stuff that brings people down and discourages them. And quite frankly, guys, I think you guys have done an awesome job at that. You guys have laid out a really good argument that things are screwed up. And that's exactly why I was asking the questions I was asking. Now it's time for a white pill. Personally, I don't think there's a political solution to politics right now. We can't vote harder to vote our way out of this, period. It's not going to happen. So I guess in this closing section, what can we do? What can people do? What can the people in the chat do? What can they share with their family to do? To act as mechanisms to keep us from getting to the end of the road where the Second Amendment being enacted is the only option that people have, realistically, not in a bravado, I'm on YouTube sort of way, the boogaloo culture and all that. I'm talking in a real legitimate way. We get there because that is the trajectory we're on, period. Full stop. Right.
Go ahead.
What can we do? What can people do? And they've talked about it in the chat, and Billy talks about it all the time. And I saw it at Midwest Preparedness Festival, but what can we do? What mechanisms are there out there or actions can people take to derail this whole thing? Go ahead. I'm gonna let you guys round table it now.
I would say the first thing that anybody who's actually willing to realistically do anything is first they have to relearn everything. Stop taking the books that they're giving out in education now. Go to a thrift shop, go to an antique store, go to a place where you can find a book that goes back more than 50 years and start rereading to include the Bible that we're reading now. Yep. And find old Bibles from, say, the 1800s, 1900s. Start reading that.
Pre-Schofield Bible.
Yeah. And then take that and then look at what has changed, what we're teaching and preaching now versus what we were teaching and preaching when we were stronger. And the reality is as strong as we are now by force and by projection, we are weaker now than we have ever been in regards to a people actually standing as one. And that's that in my mind, people standing as one is the second part of that, because educating yourself in what reality is versus what's being preached now, and then having a willingness to accept the fact that we're all in this ship together. If this boat that we are on goes down, that's it. We're the last. Like, Reagan wasn't kidding. We are the last beacon of hope on this planet. When we fall, that's it, man. That's game over. That's what people have to realize. And if they realize that, they need to re-inject themselves into the actual process. Stop sitting back and saying, "Oh, I voted and here's my sticker."
Right. Yeah.
Go do something.
Do something with your hands.
Yeah. Go talk to your politician. You have every right to show up at Congress. You have every right to show up at the Senate. You have every right to go to Washington and say, "I want to talk to my employee." Go talk to your damn employee. Talk to your congressman. Talk to your senator. And if they don't respond, start bugging the shit out of them. Because I guarantee you, somebody is going to answer eventually. And it's either because you've pissed them off or you might have an idea that actually works.
Okay, Billy.
I would rather piss them off.
Yep.
Yep.
Make them irrelevant, like I just posted up there. Bill Mollison, the godfather of permaculture, once said, if you want to start a revolution, just get 10% of the population to plant a garden. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it was echoed also by Jeff Lawton, his one of his students, and probably his without a doubt, his most prominent student. Mm-hmm. And he went on to say that all the Earth's problems are solved in a garden. Mm-hmm. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. But I would also echo that I would recommend. See, there's so many overlay with my Christian faith, even though it was never designed to be that way. There are, I guess I shouldn't get into it because there's so many overlays in which I could get into it. But the bottom line is, like even in the Bible in Psalm 1, he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. So there's so many different ways I can overlay permaculture with my faith, and also at the same time, kind of use it as a roadmap to all the ails that we've talked about a moment ago. Now, if you're wanting the bright side of things, I have to say that there will be survivors on the other end of this. I mean, I know it's not the rosy picture that everybody wants to talk about, but going back to that, what did I say about Nineveh? They were one of the people that got a stay of execution for a while because they repented for a while, but they were ultimately dealt with. But that greatest generation, the one that we call the greatest generation, I think it could be arguable that it may have been the founding fathers' generations, but let's just go with what it is. What made them so great? They were at the end of a fourth turning. Nobody ever talks about that. Mm-hmm. Anybody ever read The Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe? Every 80 years, you have what's called a saculum. This is a pattern that goes over every single 80. You have four turnings. We're in a fourth turning right now. They were at a fourth turning in World War II. And the people that fought that war, now remember, the good guys don't always come out on top. We are at the end of a fourth turning right now. That means there will be upheaval. There will be challenges. There will be wars. And like, Matthew 24 says, and rumors of wars, earthquakes in diverse places. I think we're going to see this stuff, but in every successive saculum, every 80-year period, we notice that the intensity goes up and up and up. For example, it was 80 years between the end of World War II and where we are right now. Mm-hmm. Go back 80 years before then. What does that take you to? The Civil War. What does it go back 80 years? What do you get? The Revolutionary War. Now that's from an American perspective, but similar things were happening other places. If we use that pattern, like Solomon talks about at the end of Ecclesiastes, and the very last thing he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Mm. And then he goes on to explain, you heard that Beatles song, to everything turn, 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 turn. Well, what he's talking about is a saculum there. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that's what it is that what you've seen before will overlay again, but we see it progressively worse. So I think we're going to see a conflagration. This is, believe it or not, I'm going to put a happy bow on this, I think. We're going to see an unhappy transition because it always happens in a fourth turning. Okay. And then when you get to the other side of that, if you were one of the fortunate ones to make it to the other side of that, you will see a renaissance. Mm-hmm. You will see a renaissance. And what does renaissance even mean? It means rebirth.
Yep. I'm gonna piggyback on something you just said. How long ago did the Roman Empire cease to exist?
About 2,000 years.
About 2,000 years. Romans still exist. People that live in Rome are Romans.
Great point.
And talking about coming out the other end, Americans will exist coming out the other end. The foundational Americans will exist. There's the bow on that, because everything that the Dogman was talking about is at the heart of what those type of Americans are. And as long as they're educated, as long as they believe in the morals and ethics behind it all, they will come out the other end. Now,
well, just remember, Remember those same Romans, if you read The Fall and Decline of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon, tough read, insane read, but I would suggest reading the abridged version. What did he describe? It wasn't even a generation later after Visigoths kind of, the aristocracy, and it's not wasted on me that when they knew they didn't pay the Visigoths, they knew they were going to come looking for the money. They were going to come to Rome. So all the Roman aristocracy said, hey, we're going to diddy mow on over to Constantinople. We'll be back in no time. Knowing full well that they didn't pay the Visigoth, the northern barbarian hordes. They were in there. If you read Gibbon, he describes that when they were trying to kick in the doors of Rome, they were in there in the middle of gladiatorial combat. They couldn't even get in. And they were yelling down from the stands, how much for that meat? Meaning the gladiator dead on that Colosseum floor. And they didn't even know how to clean fish. That's how stupid. They were snooky stupid 2,000 years ago. Right?
That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt, Billy. Snooky stupid.
I love
They were
it.
that snooky stupid back then.
Yep.
The only time in history where they sacked a city and didn't steal anything. They're like,
I it's interesting that you brought up the saculum, because I always go back to the old saying of hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. That is exactly what you are referring to. And it's interesting that you brought up Nineveh. I've been there. I've stood in the ruins of Nineveh. I've stood at the ziggurat of Ur, and it's the scriptures that you brought up are some of my favorites, but my absolute favorite is, and it goes back to why people don't do anything to stop certain things, and it's where they don't remember Psalms 144:1. Blessed is the Lord my God that trains my hands to fight and prepares my fingers for war. Yes. They have no concept of what that truly means, because they don't prepare for that kind of thing. They don't, as the Bible says, gird their loins. They don't have any concept of what it may take to actually go to a government official and say, stop fucking around or we're going to dispose you immediately. They don't, but they're just not willing to, because people's lives mean more to them than the overall freedom of an entire nation.
I would piggyback on that. That's a perfect point, which would, I guess, lead to what my white pill moment would be on how we can avoid the potential really bad parts, and that is to become well regulated.
So we need acoustic weaponry like they used in Venezuela?
Yes, we need all the space lasers, but become well regulated. That's something that Dogman touched on earlier, and I think it needs to be met out. You can have all the guns and gear you want, but if you don't know what to do with it, if you stack it in the basement, then you're just saving it for the next guy who knows how to use it.
You're just a loot drop,
right? You're just a loot box. New achievement, loot box, golden loot box. So get well regulated, and what that means is actually go shoot your guns. Maybe network with other like-minded people, get unfat, have a better diet, drink less, smoke less, all that stuff. It takes discipline to become well-regulated. And you're not going to be well-regulated banging out your BoomerCon, milquetoast BoomerCon opinions on politics on Facebook. You got to get out there and get your feet in the dirt. You got to bleed a little bit. You got to get a little sweaty, a little uncomfortable now, because man, if you're living that air conditioned lifestyle, you're not going to be worth anything if it really comes down to that.
Oh yeah,
you want to talk a little bit about civic action and being involved in that sort of thing?
Sure.
Yeah. I've spent the last 12 years of my life living the scene from Braveheart, where he realized not all of his countrymen want freedom. Like, we're in that period right now where you've got all of this going on, and the majority of the people you have a conversation with, they just want to exist. They just want to go to work. They just want to watch their Netflix series. They want to heat up their microwave oven meal. Like, that's all they want. We've been so conditioned to that snooky generation where people are more concerned with what's going on in, the Jersey Shore than they are what's going on in Washington, D.C., or in their local state house, or in their local county commission. like all of these different like tiers of, I guess, lack of a better term, tyranny that have infiltrated our governments, infiltrated our societies. Like from a civil perspective, you can build those concentric rings of networks. You can network with cats like Billy Bond. You can network with cats like, Dogman, Bobby, myself, Grumpy. In your area of operations, in your AO right now, you can begin building. If not, you can join those concentric rings, start building those groups and networks, building out a community-supported agriculture co-op, some kind of way of bartering, so that way when these things do transpire, it's going to happen. Like Billy said, at some point in time, we're going to reach that tipping point where there's no turning back. And now, like, the 10% that live out in the country versus the 90% that live in the cities, where do you think they're going to turn when the Walmart distribution trucks stop rolling? Where do you think they're going to turn when they can't go to Quick Trip and buy their sushi? Where do you think they're going to turn when they're going to look at you? They're going to look at you like a Snickers bar at a weight loss convention.
Nice.
Become well regulated, guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, if these roundtables don't work out, man, I'll tell you what, the capitalist in me is just coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas. Man, when you got guys named Grumpy and Dogman, bro, we could have like a rotating like stripper clown circus, man, that goes on the road and has these conversations, man. I mean, we'll have to come up with a dancing name for Bobby and Patrick. I mean, we can call Bobby Rumple Foreskin, and Patrick could be Girth Brooks or something. We could make you guys
We can call it the Skies Out, Thighs Out tour. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, man, we could special. I'll be you guys' manager, man. We'll work nursing homes. We
should do it. We should totally do that. Take this show on the road.
I'm gonna
no college universities though. I don't want to get kirked.
I'm gonna throw this out there with my
oh man.
Okay. So the core of everything that you guys just talked about is preparedness.
Yes.
Plain and simple. It's preparedness. And whether you live in an apartment building in a city or you live extremely rural like Billy and I do. I don't know about you, Dogman, but it's all the same thing. It's all the same continuum. And getting as far along that continuum as you can realistically is the most important thing you can do. Dogman talked about becoming educated. Patrick talked about becoming engaged. Bobby talked about becoming skilled, building your skills. Billy talked about gardening and understanding the patterns. That's a huge. The saculum is 100% a permaculture ideal where you understand the patterns, right? And understanding the patterns is half the battle. So if I were to white pill you and give you an off ramp and give you some place to start, look at becoming prepared. Go to Midwest Preparedness festivals. Go to the festivals that Billy speaks at constantly. And go to these things and
like Midwest Preparedness.
Yeah, learn about this stuff. Learn about the soil. Learn about the educate, because this one of the things I'll say this about the last Midwest Preparedness Festival that happened 2 weeks ago. Is it 2 weeks now?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
2 weeks ago now. That was probably the most well-rounded group of speakers that touched on so many different aspects of the whole preparedness thing. I've been to. What, Patrick? I've been to all of them, but the first 5, 6 of them.
Yeah, G's OG.
Just when it was 5 families out there camping twice a year.
When it was the survivalist boards camp out, yeah.
I'm telling you, that was the most well-rounded group of speakers that they've had, and ultimately, we talk about it all the time, and these guys hit on it. This is why I love this group of guys. They talked about food independence. They talked about modern self-reliance, and they talked about building community. And those in my opinion, are the three core things that you can do to fight everything that we talked about through the beginning of this roundtable.
Yeah, and if you can't travel, pick up a podcast.
Exactly. Get it. Speaking of podcasts, I'm talking with Buddy right now about being a guest on the Tops Bunker, man.
Tops Bunker, yeah, man. I'm really glad I got involved with that. I will say, because I would have never in a million years thought that I would ever be on a podcast, but it's actually introduced me to like people like y'all. And because, I know there's plenty of people out there that call themselves prepared and all those, different sorts of things. But when you grow up with that lifestyle, and that's like literally how I grew up, and then you see the decadence of life now, and you start thinking to yourself, oh man, that looks really great, and that looks really nice, and I want that, and I want that. And then you start looking at prices now, and I'm so glad we have a garden. I mean, the garden, and I don't think any of our kids or grandkids really at this point in their lives understand how important a garden is. It's not just growing your own food. It's not just that. It is a physical, spiritual, mental, there is chemical compounds within soil that by touching the soil and actually playing in it and working in it, you get your own boost of serotonin. You get your own drug right there just by playing in the dirt and worms.
Billy, you need to offline talk to him about sun in his taint, how good that is.
Hey,
I'm mixed, man. I'm mixed. I can sunburn near a hot fart. I'm not kidding, man.
Hey guys, listen, we're getting towards the end of this thing, and it's about time to wrap up. But I want to comment on something here. This comment right here, that if enough people stop participating by proxy, stop propping up, or no, that's not the one. Where is it? Oh, there it is. This only works if a large majority of people opt out and create parallel networks. Yes, but that does not take place until we start having conversations like this. And I'm not talking about online. I'm talking about in person with people that you do not know. You get to know them so you can have these type of conversations. The opting out, people are not going to opt out. Enough people, yes, there will be people that opt out, but not enough to gain momentum in this movement. Mm-hmm. So you have to start these conversations. Okay, guys, listen. It's about an hour. Actually, we're an hour and a half in, and we're getting to the point where my undiagnosed OCD starts kicking in, and my mind starts wandering.
His saculum starts sweating.
Hey, they make a cream for that.
Guys, why don't we start with Bobby and Patrick? Why don't you give closing thoughts and then tell people about what you got going on, where they can see you and engage with you. All right. And then we'll work around Billy and then Dogman. Okay, go ahead.
As my good friend Bobby Spags would say, turn off your TV and grow a tomato. Like, get outside your comfort zone, because it's the only place you're ever going to grow. If you find yourself in a position where you are a one-man army, you're in a losing proposition. The lone wolf mentality, like, it's a bad place to be. So community is where it's at. Finding your tribe is where it's at. Building your networks now, while times are peaceful and easy, are going to make your life, your children's life, your wife, your spouse, your house, all of those things much more sustainable when the flag does go up, when people do look at you like that Snickers bar, when people do realize that the veil of civility has fallen away, and we are actually living in what somebody might say is the end of the times. So
I'm Bobby Spags, your MC from the MPP, here with your preparedness PSA of the day. Remember, get off the couch, get out of your comfort zone, meet people, come to Midwest Preparedness Project. Check us out on our website, MidwestPreparednessProject.com, all social media of the same name. And you will find us constantly online with great guys like this, just making complete fools of ourselves. So find and network, get off the couch.
Billy Bond from the Permaculture Pimpcast and Perma Pastures Farms. That's a whole lot of peas. And I'm the Permaculture Pimp Daddy. So with all that being said, I saw a shirt a while ago where, no, it wasn't a shirt. Somebody said it. I don't even know where it came from, but I think it kind of sums it all up. Is that I think everybody here to a certain extent or another conveyed that you got to constantly learn, whether it's history, the real history, whether it's, planting a tomato, whether it's doing this or doing that. But when you're green, you grow. When you're ripe, you rot. That's really it. When you get to that point where you feel like you're not learning anything else, well, that's exactly where you're going to stay. So yeah, constantly learn. Look, I know we gave out some grim statistics, or at least I did, much to the chagrin maybe of other people out there. Maybe I could have talked more about solutions. If you want to see those, go watch my YouTube channel. If you want to get told if you want to hear what I really think about things in the world, that's where the podcast comes in. But anyway, at the end of the day, it was a joy to be on with these guys. I learned a lot, and you guys make me feel you make me feel less alone in the world, especially in a world where most people are content to be snooky stupid. You know why?
We're all Polynesians now.
That's a yellow pride showing there.
I don't think we're in the right month. We're not in the right month for that one.
Yeah.
Well, I would to kind of carry on with because I don't like using the phrase piggyback or let me bounce off that one. To kind of carry on with what you were talking about, if you have become to the point where you are in your lifetime that piece of fruit that's about to rot, be the one that's actually where you can gather seed from and give it to the next generation. If you don't think you have anything to contribute, which everyone does, take what you know and pass it on. Start teaching other people, especially young people. Our grandkids are out in that garden with us, planting way too much crap. But the point is that we have another generation behind us that when my wife and I are gone, they're going to know how to skin a buck. They can drop a line. They can plant a garden. They can do those things. Of course, our grandkids are a little exceptional because they're quite feral. But the point is that instead of being the piece of fruit or the flower that rots and falls and just hits the ground and just continues a negative cycle, take the seed, pass it on. And you can find me on Tops Bunker podcast, Facebook, Tops Bunker, and learn something. You're never that phrase, you're never too old to learn. Learn something and get it done. Do all the things that you can. And y'all talked about not watching the TV and all that other crap. I stopped watching all sports and television 15 years ago. I'll binge on something every once in a while, but I don't do that anymore because I don't want to. And when you see the same negative, ugly cycle just over and over and over and over again, just turn it off, man. It's not doing you any good. It's not.
Well said.
And yes. And I want to start by saying thanks for showing up, guys, and thanks for showing up. I am Grumpy from Grumpy Acres Farm. You go to our channel to do videos. I do videos on social political stuff, homesteading, preparedness. My latest endeavor, I just published a book. It's out on Amazon now. In fact, stick around at the end. There's going to be a commercial on it. I think I did a pretty good job of creating the commercial. I'm pretty proud of it. Anyway,
don't break your arm there, bro.
I know. I need a pat on the back. So I'm giving myself one. Anyway, and I am an internationally published author now too. I sold a book in Britain. I'm running with it.
There you go. Level up, buddy. Level up.
But Hacks is in here, and Hacks and I went to Self-Reliance Festival years ago to meet up with Billy and be part of his entourage. And we were driving back to Kansas, and Hacks said something. He pointed something out that I thought was very, very astute. We were going by the lake there in Tennessee, and it was Sunday afternoon, and all the boats were coming in off the water. And he looked at them, and he brought it to my attention, and he said, "Those people don't get it. They're still out there running their boats on a Sunday afternoon. That's what's important to them." Right. And I was like, can't argue with that logic. Cannot argue with that logic. And again, guys, thank you for showing up. Hey, I'm gonna remove you guys when we end the stream. Don't run away. Let's do a quick after action on this. Everybody, thank you for showing up, and thank you for being part of this. This was a great conversation. All right. So here we go. As always, guys, go out tomorrow and try to live a life done free. Take care.
I hope I'm wrong, but I'm still ready. Most people think preparedness is about fear. It's not. It's about responsibility. The lights are still on, stores are still open, the systems still work, just not the way they used to. and most people don't notice the pressure until it reaches their front door. City Survival 101, the full spectrum urban preparedness guide, isn't about panic. It's about understanding how modern systems really work and how to keep your household operating when they don't. Real-world preparedness for real-world people. No fantasy, no fear porn, just practical systems that buy you time, options, and control. Available now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover.